guys, oh shit, I shouldn't be streaming right now, but whatever. Real quick, we're gonna be talking about Han, just to fill you in. We're gonna be talking about the story that only you can tell. So the idea of figuring out what ideas of all the movie ideas you have, like what are the ideas to pursue, and how do you locate that idea that is the one that you'll wake up for every day, kind of thing. And then I have a new segment called Movie News Blab. So that has a bunch of pre-recorded intros and some interesting articles that we can chat about. So we'll do the first half we'll just kind of go off of that, and then we'll see. Maybe we'll get to do the news in the second half. We'll just decide. Okay, let's start the show, guys. Thank you so much, by the way. Love y'all.
Oh, show.
Okay, and away. On in 6 minutes.
Damn, that's a long countdown.
Fine, I'll speed it up. No, I just have to set a few things to make sure I'm set. There's a lot more cues in this one than I usually do. Love the dancing though, Katie. That'll keep people. That'll keep their attention. I should mention Katie's a dope artist. Yeah, she's on my podcast. Yeah, I made up a word called podcast.
too. I'm hearing some echo.
Is that from Han?
Echo.
Hold on, let me turn this down.
Yeah, that's definitely for me.
Do we still get it now?
Yeah, I can turn my thing down.
Do you have just a normal? You don't have normal headphones?
I don't have the whole.
Yeah, it's gone now. Okay. So, Han, if you do me a favor and try to mute yourself unless you're chiming in.
Okay.
If you can. If you feel like there's noise coming from you or you're hearing an echo, you know.
Are you hearing an echo right now?
No, you sound great right now.
Yeah, I turned it down.
The live stream is playing. Hey, Claire.
Yeah, hey, hey Nick, hey Jasmine. What's up?
What'd you say, Katie?
Just saying hi to some people that are in my watch party.
Oh,
right
hell yeah,
now.
we're all having watch parties. Love it. Yeah, feel free to chime in with anything that you're reading on the chats. People love that. There's a slight delay, but it's an almost real-time interaction.
We're live.
We're live in 3 minutes.
Oh, how do I turn my video? It says private video can only be viewed by people I select. That sucks.
What? Wait, what?
Yeah,
Like on
what's
my
that?
watch party, it says it's a private video that can only be viewed by people I select.
That must be your weird settings. I don't know.
Yeah.
But feel free to select some people. We still got 2 minutes and 30 seconds before we're live.
about 30 seconds behind.
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah, because I streamed to so many, and I asked for it to be a
No,
certain
it's okay.
quality.
Like with the timer, you can see exactly how much
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
behind.
it changes depending on the speed of things. All right, we're live in 50 seconds, guys.
This time.
Yeah, it's dope. There's a lot of cool free ones out there. Am I up loud enough, guys?
Yeah.
All right, guys. 5 seconds. Yo, 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 here we go. Let's do this thing. Hey, everybody, it's Andrew Edison, and you're listening to Movie Lab. Action! That's right, it's time for Movie Blab Bonus Features Episode 4 with my special guest, Sherrod Patel, Katie McDowell, and Morgan Hahn. I'm your host, Andrew Edison. Let's get this party started. What's up, guys? How is it going?
What's up?
There's going to be a lot of fun clips like that today. I went above and beyond this morning and got up real early. How are you guys? What's up? Yeah, I listened to the interview with what's his name?
Tom Brady.
Yeah, Tom Brady. Yeah, it's kind of boring. All right, how is everyone doing? This is Bonus Features, the place to blab about movies even more than we blab in a filmmaker's podcast. It's all very confusing, but you'll understand eventually. Guys, how are you? It is Wednesday afternoon. How's everyone doing?
Pretty damn good. Just waking up.
Yeah, everyone's on that sleep schedule now of just like staying up super late, waking up super late. What,
Yeah, I
you know,
stayed up till like 3 a.m. editing.
I feel like the nighttime is less germy anyway, so that's good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
There was no one outside last night. When I went and had a cigarette because it was raining, I was like, wow, the streets are literally empty.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's crazy. I'm going to go to speaker view. Okay, so this week, the theme that we are checking out in episode 4 is the story that only you can tell. I wanted to start off this conversation with the quote that I stole this theme from, which is a Neil Gaiman quote. Anybody a fan of Neil Gaiman out there?
Yeah.
Let's bring the energy, guys. Come on.
No, I know who Neil Gaiman is, I think, but I actually.
Well, you're
I
about
don't
to
know
know
who
him.
it is.
You're about to know him a little bit better as I read a quick quote from Neil Gaiman. Start telling stories that only you can tell, because there'll always be better writers than you, and there'll always be smarter writers than you. There will always be people who are much better at doing this or doing that, but you are the only you. Tarantino, you can criticize everything that Quentin does, but nobody writes Tarantino stuff like Tarantino. He is the best Tarantino writer there is. And that was actually the thing that people responded to. They're going, this is an individual writing with his point of view. There are better writers than me out there. There are smarter writers. There are people who can plot better. There are all kinds of things, but there's nobody who can write a Neil Gaiman story like I can. Pretty dank quote.
No.
And I wholeheartedly agree with it. And I think this is something that a lot of people struggle with, especially when embarking on making their first feature or writing their first screenplay or a short film, whatever it is. Really, actually, it's like, how do we pick the idea that most fuels our creative souls?
Well, and especially today when there's I feel a certain, it's like the minute I hear what sort of stories you can tell, I immediately sort of like retreat back into a shell and say, well, only a story that like a straight white male can tell. Like there's that element of it.
Okay.
Where it's like, I can't tell a story about, like, I feel weird writing, like, you know, a woman going through like certain things, because it's like, I have no idea what that experience is like. But at the same time, that's not like, I think that's like a warped version.
Well, I mean, I have no idea what it's like.
Now.
I have no idea what it's like to escape into the inner city and lose my virginity to a homeless person. Yet we made a movie about that.
Right, but that's what I'm saying, is that that shouldn't be that wall should not be.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's something to work through totally, because there's a lot more clearly, obviously, that defines you than than just being a straight white male. And so I think that. And I think
wanted to write
there's a lot of there's a lot of yourself that you can put,
like,
and you can. But you can still make that idea something that only you could write, because it goes into more than just the premise or the location or whatever. Sherrod, thank you for joining us on Movie Blab. By the way, you are an excellent mentor of mine, a great friend. Speak a little bit so we can see you. There we go. And you have beautiful glasses. You're one of the only people I work with who has 4 eyes. Or is it 6?
It's 6.
Okay. Yeah, you look like a bug. But thank you for joining us on here, because you are full of wisdom. You're an incredibly accomplished independent filmmaker yourself, as well as like a media artist and all kinds of. How do you describe yourself to people on the street?
Well, I claim to be a filmmaker.
There you go.
I think all the things I do sort of point that way, or combine when I do make a film, like even down to drawing storyboards to making music.
You could say, Sherrod, that your whole life is dedicated to movies and media and film. Is that true?
It could be said that it's dedicated to telling stories, which is another form of telling lies. So maybe my whole life is dedicated to telling lies. So
let's dive into this. Just because your inspiration for the idea is coming from a personal, true place, doesn't mean, as Sherrod's pointing out, you can't tell a bunch of lies. Right. And that gets to what Han's saying about not being able to write something. It's like, well, you can lie your way into the truth. And I think that's a big part of filmmaking. What do you think?
I think the key to authoring something that is truly your own is, you come up with a story, you come up with ideas that actually interest you, that you are super invested in, that you think, is exciting. And, often no one else will give a shit about it, but that it will truly be your thing.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, I mean, that's why I love indie film, because you do the ownership. Katie, how do you feel about how do you pick an idea? I mean, you're constantly having to come up with ideas for music videos, and for you're writing. You have a script that you've been working on for many years that I know you have a special that feels like it's coming from a place of expressing yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my biggest thing when I'm working is all about like what we have and what we can build on, and then building the story kind of around that.
Yeah.
And so for me, kind of building a good idea is taking what locations can we get, what's our budget, what can we make happen with that and make it good, and then we like build around that.
Well, maybe it's something that you're so naturally good at because you've been making films for so long, but I would say that when I see a Katie McDowell music video, I know it's a Katie McDowell music video, and I see parts of your personality, your humor, your vision, your creativity. I see that in all of your work consistently. So how do you do that? Is it something that natural, or is it something that is, how do you do that?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just kind of, I mean, I guess everyone has their style. If you really are, this is what you do, I feel like everybody has their own little things,
it's hard
their
to survive
own style,
without
their own personality. Yeah. If you don't have that's kind of like the it factor. Like, that's the start, like, not to call it a start, but that's like the star factor. That's what sets you apart. If you can bring all the things that influence you and all the things that you like and your personality into a script that's not even yours, or like into, a project you're just coming into, then that's kind of like what helps you stand apart from people that are just picking up a camera,
Of course. Yeah. So how do you find the idea Sherrod, I'll go back to you because I could say the same thing I said about Katie to you. Obviously, it's like Sherrod has. I think that all of us have made films to the point where we're done copying other people, and we're now we're at least exploring our own kind of voices and styles. And indie film allows you to it embraces that in a way that other things don't. Katie, will you turn off your background because it's like your hands keep disappearing like while you're talking? Yeah.
It just automatically came in on this.
Oh, that's funny. Anyway, but Sherrod, how do you find those ideas that you want to wake up every day, and what is that like psychologically when you find that you want to wake up every day and dive into?
I mean, for me, an idea that I pursue, I mean, it just comes to me, you know, like a thread or a scene or a mood or a combination of elements. But like I was saying, that it keeps me so interested, or it makes me so like just me personally. I feel like, oh, I want to see that.
Yes, and I'm the only one who can make people see it, right?
Right, or I'm the only one that can make myself see it, like Amazing. Put it together.
Yes. You know? Well, and there is a big piece of wisdom out there in the filmmaking world that you should make the movie for yourself. And I don't think I've ever succeeded in a project that I didn't make so, like you're saying, I could watch first.
I think that's the energy that drives a project, is whether you are interested in it. Of course, you know, I mean, a movie is supposed to be shown to people. Right.
Yes. Some movies are.
Some movies we don't.
Yeah, it's true. You can go too far though, and like, only cater to yourself and not. Everybody.
Exactly. And you can't just trust yourself as a viewer. You're so in this thing, and hopefully you are blind to some of this stuff. You are hitting blind spots. That means you're so connected to it. You're so into it that you almost can't. That you should be you should be needing another perspective.
One thing that's, I guess, unique, about my experience making movies, I think, is that I'm also helping artists make art films.
Yeah.
And often those don't necessarily have any kind of audience or don't concede to any sort of pop audience, you know.
Of course, yeah.
And those usually are so personal divisions that if I'm helping an artist make their art video, I don't even understand what we're doing, but I just know how to do my part well.
That sounds a lot like what Katie said previously on other episodes of Bonus Features about working with music artists.
Or just any client, really. Yeah, it's just kind of like, sometimes you just are there. I had a friend who had a production company, and it was like, we make your shitty movie shorter or better. Yes. You know, like,
polish your turds. We polish turds.
I mean, at the same time, I think in general, we're talking about conventional narrative films, the kinds of films that you show at film festivals that show narrative films, or that we're streaming and watching. And of course, in those cases, I think it's a strategy to also like maybe pick a circle of people, like maybe 4 or 5 people, and say, now, how would these people react to it, and would they get excited? You know?
That's a great technique for stepping out of your own limited perspective,
right?
You know, which is a big struggle throughout the process, especially independent films. You're living and breathing it, so you got to get someone else to.
I think the danger though is when people cast too wide of a net.
Sure.
Like they're thinking, how am I going to make this movie appeal to 1 million people?
You know? Right.
Yeah, if that's what you're doing, if that's what you're here for, please stop listening. No, rethink that. Yeah, I totally agree. And it gets to the why of it all, which is the first step. But now we're talking kind of about, okay, so you know why you want to make films. You have some ideas, whether they're, like you're saying, like a feeling, or a mood, or a shot, or a piece of dialogue, or a scene, or a premise, whatever it is, you have that going. So now, how do you sort through those? How do you find the one that's truest to you? I think there is something about pitching it to other people and seeing which ones they connect with, because chances are it's not even the idea. You're just telling the pitch better because you like the idea more. I find that I write better the more passionate I am. So I've tried to push myself through things that I didn't truly believe in, or didn't thinking that I would fix it, and then slowly that peters out. And I think there's a difference between struggling through a story problem struggling to get re-inspired, and having started wrong from the beginning with something inauthentic or something that's for everybody.
Oh, and okay, two things. Like when you do express you're pitching your idea to somebody, like, so we're talking about the process of just coming up with the idea, right?
Yeah. So we're talking about, yes, we're talking about that process. Yeah.
Pitching it forces you to squeeze the idea through this narrow kind of lens of how do I tell it as a story? How do I tell it as a campfire story?
Yes.
And that forces you to get focused and like, well, how do I make these ideas into a sentence with a subject, a verb, and a structure and everything. So pitching helps you internally. Not only does it, convey the idea to somebody else, but the other side of that is I can't tell you how many times somebody has just thrown an idea back at me like, well, what if this happened? Yeah. And it's so good, and I could have never come up with it.
Yeah, of course. That's a melancholy. That's a good thing and a bad thing.
No, I think it's a good thing.
No, of course it's a good thing. Yeah. But it's funny though that afterwards we have those feelings of like, I could never have come up with that, but it's a gift. Those are gifts that people give you, and you only get that opportunity if you extend it.
Yeah, and then later on you can claim to have come up with it.
Of course. They don't care. They're not filmmakers, chances are, if their ideas are any good. So
you can make them sign a non-disclosure.
Han, we lost you for a second, but you're back. How,
my internet went down for a second.
Oh, dope. That's always good.
But sorry to have missed the couple minutes I missed.
Yeah. No worries. We did have some great conversation though about kind of this stage of, so let's say you have a few ideas, because I know I'm someone who keeps notes, of ideas. I have a movie folder where I just like, sometimes I'd be like, what if there was a movie about this character or this, right. What if this image or whatever it is? And I think everyone should try to do that.
Yeah.
But how do you shift, if that's what you're doing, if you have this, let's say you have your idea journal and it's right. Halfway finished, how do you pick? Because I found particularly in my early 20s that I could write in circles and it's part of my process, but like I could just write myself into the ground, and I could flip-flop from idea to idea and never fully develop one of them. Right. Because Tuesday I like this idea and Wednesday I feel better about this idea, but it's ultimately that I'm insecure about, which I haven't found that thing that I spring to life for.
I feel like a lot of really successful directors do that, though. I've heard Guillermo del Toro talk about how he has like 5 different things in his head all the time. And and it's just about working that one piece for a little bit, and then you switch over, and obviously when something's in production it's different, but as I think of anyone who's a writer and a filmmaker, there's an element of you want to like you need to be able to balance those like ideas and thoughts and trade off and find different things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And different colors and different ideas, and those things will meld together in a big way.
But then there becomes a point though where you have to make one of these things. You have to choose one, and I think that brainstorming you can't stay in the storm. The storm has to pass.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and I will say that the things that I get the most excited about, whether it's something I'm writing or something I'm producing or whatever, the things that the thing that gets me the most excited is actually has to do with the kind of people I'll be around. Like it has to do with the collaboration and the people. So it's like if I know that this idea is going to bring me into onto a set with a lot of really cool people doing something really feeling like,
I think I'm imagining the production of it.
Something together.
Yes.
It's not just about me and what I want to be doing or what my idea is. It's about like, let's as a community make something really meaningful.
And that's nice.
Something that's going to bring joy or laughter or whatever. Like to me, it's about coming into that, like bringing that group together and the collaboration that comes in that bubble, like in that moment right there.
Yeah,
that's what really gets me excited, and like it's that piece that gets me excited to keep going. Like that,
I think that's a beautiful like thought to put out there too. But and I think there's also a tool there in terms of when you're creating your project to like a great way. And I think Katie was hitting on this. The way to narrow it down is to think about what you could actually make. Which one of these ideas is actually going to get me to a place where I have a final product within the next year or two.
And what you can make and make it well. Because there's things like you could make it, but it doesn't mean it's going to be good. Like take what you can make the best. Like, what you have the best actors for, like what you have the best locations for, what you have the best equipment to make happen,
Yeah, absolutely. Sharon, what have you seen in terms of, like, a lot of people send you short films for feedback. Obviously, we're not going to talk about any specific film, but you've had years of films sent to you, and you've programmed with us with previous years, right?
With Slamdance. And
what are your quick tips for the things that you're just that I'm trying to locate the things that just shoot you in the foot from the get-go, right? Like, what are those things that where you watch it and you're like, well, this was doomed because?
I think, a big red flag is if it just seems like a complete imitation of something famous or something.
Oh, totally.
Like if somebody's completely copying Wes Anderson, or
it's a great form of flattery, but it's not anything anyone wants to watch.
That's a big film student thing to do too.
Right. And I think those things are useful when you're learning, but when it's time to start, if you're serious about submitting work to like festivals and stuff, you got to understand that festival programmers are very wary of seeing stuff that's copycat styles.
Because we were just wary of all those patterns that we've seen people fall into with every the majority of submissions.
And that goes to like Katie, having your own voice. Like you need to have your own voice if you want to succeed. You can't be like, I love Tarantino, so I'm going to do big credits and chapters and like all the things that it's not gonna. You need your own voice always,
And that's sort of what I was just about to say, which is that you need that edge or that hook, that thing that's gonna bring people in.
And that's the personal thing, and that's usually the personal thing.
Anything.
And that's usually the personal thing, and it's usually the thing that comes from the heart. Whether it's thematically, a film is a very abstract medium, and indie film really knows that and uses that and challenges it in amazing ways, in ways that you couldn't do. With bigger movies. So there's an opportunity. What's the point of going through the hardship of making an indie film? And it is a hardship. What is the point of putting yourself through that if at the end you're not telling a story that's as honest as the first time you told it, and that you feel as connected, you feel even hopefully more connected to than when you first got excited about the idea. And it really harkens back to those early stages.
The other side of the coin to that would be if you are going to copy a style, mimic somebody that's popular, make sure it's from another time period so nobody can figure out who you're copying.
Set it in a different period.
No, I mean like pick somebody that was like
to copy
style, Charlie Chaplin style.
Yeah, exactly. Copy Humphrey Bogart movies, or
in the way that like George Lucas copied the Kurosawa sort of Seven Samurai stuff.
Exactly.
Brick is another great idea, a good example of taking film.
Yeah, Brick. People don't understand that Star Wars in 1977 was not in fashion. It didn't. It had orchestral music from like 20s movies in it, and people don't understand that it was retro. As a style.
In that moment, it was retro.
It was retro as a style, but it became so popular that people think of it as its own thing.
As it's pop culture, what we do today.
Star Wars has such a its own whole visual language that you see something immediately and hear something, it's Star Wars.
Exactly. Well, and it's influenced so much of what came after it.
I know, that was just so popular.
All of Hollywood was changed after that. It was like,
Well, it's interesting. The Christopher, who's the guy who wrote the book? Voyager, I think is his name. What
book?
He wrote it's the book that George Lucas used, the myths, the myth book that
Joseph Campbell?
Yes, Joseph Campbell. I'm sorry. Christopher, somebody wrote the book for the writer's journey.
Maybe Christopher Walken read it.
Yeah. Oh, I'd love to hear Christopher Walken read the hero's
Read
journey.
Joseph Campbell's book.
Just gonna throw that out there. But anyway, so like he was using ancient structure as well. I mean, the point is every story has been told, but you haven't told it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's what's gonna make it different. You know,
Star Wars, I think, is a pretty good example of something where like George Lucas was the only person who could have told that story. Like there was going to be no, like he had it in his head. It was his vision, and he fought tooth and nail sort of through all the shit, especially of the first movie, how like sort of crazy the production of the first movie was, and made his vision happen. And that was only a story that he could tell.
And I wonder if a little piece of his soul died when that changed.
Sure. Oh, definitely.
Well, I think that brings up this whole thing about like when you're making your own movie, what do you do about all the voices that tell you stop?
Right. Yes,
it's no good.
I think the psychology of filmmakers is something that isn't really tackled, and I really want to tackle it on this show because there is so many voices. What voices do you guys hear on a regular basis when you're doing, when you're trying to tell a story creatively and going through that filmmaking process?
Well, sometimes my cat walks in and talks to me.
That's the mushrooms, Jared. That's the mushrooms. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying, there are times where I'm editing where I'm like I didn't get the shots that I wanted. I didn't get what I needed. This didn't work out how I wanted it to, or the performance that isn't how I want it, like how I imagined it in my head when we were doing. But it's, it is all about like working with what you have. Again, like, you got to take what you have and build it. And so like a lot of times that's kind of my first step when I get in there. I'm like, oh my God. And then it's like, wait a minute, take a step back. And then I go through and I'm like, okay, we can cut this. And we like, and then I go through and I'm like, oh man, this is pretty sick, Yeah,
I mean, I think there's one for me is I call it feedback-based paranoia, which is a stage that you're going to have no matter what. You have to work through it. So you might write something and it feels great on the writing side, and you show it to someone and then they give you an honest response and it's not the response you wanted. Well, that can be upsetting, and it's going to be upsetting. You have to let yourself have those feelings, but you can't carry that paranoia of not doing the best job. That people tell you to shit it out in screenwriting. Especially in early stages of any of the process, you're really just banging out, you're just trying to get it done. And then edit, so know that film is a non-destructive medium. Editing is, writing is. You can keep what you've cut and you can add wherever you want, and it's going to keep it's not, so I think there's a freedom there at all levels.
Yeah, I think in terms of the voices, I mean, I think we all have that voice of doubt or sort of criticism or whatever that, that voice is that says, hey, is that right? Are you sure about that in your own head?
Yeah.
And that's why I think, sort of going back to my earlier point, having people around you, like making sure you're surrounding yourself with people who you love working with, because those, having that voice that you can bounce something off of, a friend or a colleague you can really trust, and being able to bounce something off of them and know if they react a certain way, you can be like, oh, okay, so that doesn't hit them in the same way it hit me. I wonder why, and like evaluate from that point. I mean, I think having a good one or two voices around you to bounce your own
in your head,
to mirror against to mirror against that voice in your head and say, is the voice in my head right here? Or is that just that paranoia?
And I know a lot of artists who like to try to write, they journal through that sometimes.
Yeah, totally.
And I've done that. I've written myself messages in my notepad, saying, like, I call them writer's notes, and I'll mark it WN, and I'll motivate myself. I'll say, come on, like, we got to figure out this, or we need to get to this point, or whatever it is, or like rethink about this. And I write myself these notes and I try to document some of these voices in my head. I think another big voice is the voice of excuses, making excuses for why you haven't gotten the draft done, why you haven't set a deadline, why you haven't sat down to write this script. Those can really take over.
Yeah.
I was also going to add on to what Han said earlier that, like, it is good, I think, to have a little circle of trust that you send your little creative trust that you can send your stuff to. But to also be careful of not letting there get feel like too many cooks in the kitchen. Like, don't send it
Yes.
off before you're done, and then be like,
Right.
they've made edits on things, and you're like, well, I'm still gonna build it to here, and then you change it because they've
Right.
given you notes on something you haven't finished yet, and like,
Yeah.
then you get all in your head and you can't even finish it, you know. And it's
Katie
Right.
and I, we got in this pattern with my short film scripts, and she did me the biggest favor by gently telling me that I should wait and show it to her when it's actually ready.
yeah,
And I think that you can do that in a nice way, like you did for me, in a sensitive way. But you can do that for someone else who may be coming to you with feedback needing feedback on something that isn't finished, or because there is science out there about if there's a dopamine rush that you get, a fake feeling of accomplishment you get when you talk to other people about your ideas.
Mhm.
And so that can block your writing and that's an extreme thing, you know?
Yeah, because you
Yeah, oh,
stop,
totally.
you stop expanding, you stop thinking about it because you're like, oh, I did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And then
Shit
you're
something
only
out and I
kind of-
did it. Great.
yeah, you're only building on like what you already have and not your whole arch yet, you know.
Right.
You know, Andrew, what I used to always say about feedback, right?
Why'd you laugh, Katie?
Like you pretend, okay, ask me, pretend like you're asking me for feedback right now.
Hey, Sharon. Listen, I've been writing for the past 24 hours. It just all came to me. It's a 120-page script, completely off the top, and I really need your feedback immediately.
Okay, well, I read it, and do you want me to tell you my feedback like I'm your mom, or do you want me to tell you as a filmmaker? Because
my mom is a filmmaker. So. No, I'm kidding.
Okay, well, but still, because I could say that's really neat.
Yeah. Or I could give you actual thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was beautiful.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Anytime
Really
you
a
want to role play.
fun ride.
Anytime you
I-
want to role play, Sharon.
What I like, Andrew, is when you tell me a mix.
A mix.
You got, give me a little bit of mom.
Yeah, give me a
and
little mom, a little
bit of
filmmaker.
filmmaker.
That's what I need. I need a mommy.
That's you knowing yourself well enough
Yeah.
to say that. Like, and that's important. Like,
You're right. I
if
think knowing
you're not going to be able to take the full brunt of like the filmmaker thing.
yes.
Yeah.
Just like
And
it's
you want
good
a
to
little
be-
bit of that like support. Yeah.
Just like it's good to be
And
aware
I
of
think
your.
most
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I think most writers are like that. Like, don't want
Yeah.
that harsh feedback, because you put your heart and your soul into what you're writing, and then somebody gives it, just shits on it. It doesn't feel very good.
And then you sit back down. You sit back down in front of your printed manuscript, and it looks. And you imagine there's actual poop all over it, and suddenly you don't want to work on it.
I always go for the compliment sandwich. A friend taught me that in college. You give a compliment, then you give the criticism, then you give another compliment.
Yep.
Compliments.
I usually do the first compliment, and then some sort of message of hope.
Message of
But you want to support your colleagues by giving positive vibes, but also constructive vibes, and I think that's a man, we've really hit this. Is there anything else to add before we go to the break?
I mean, yeah, I want to, I don't know exactly what I want to say. I do want to keep talking about like what it is to do something for yourself, you know, like that, like what that means, making something that only you can make, because it's a really interesting idea and something I know I've struggled with. So I just, that part of it, the original.
Yeah, I guess like building your style. Yeah, like
right, like building, what that is for yourself. I'm just interested in exploring that more. But I know we also have movie news to talk about as well.
Yeah, we're gonna do movie news as a brand new segment. Why don't we do some movie news? I don't think we need to spend forever on movie news, and then we'll wrap it all back up together in a big bow, which will give us some time to think more about kind of all this great thought that we've thrown out there. So we are going to go to a quick commercial break. Thank you guys for staying tuned. It kind of is in a meta kind of Russian doll way. Not the show, just like that. Jared looks dope. I love that, especially like he's saying really smart stuff. And then
I know, and it just looks so funny.
And that's why I love this show. All right, guys, here's the commercial. Let me just quickly switch us back to God, it would have been cool if I just hit it right then, right? Don't leave yet. Don't leave yet, Han. Hold on.
There goes Han.
I gotta go to gallery view.
Put your sunglasses back on
Okay.
now.
I don't know if you have time for a cig, but let's try. You got 2 minutes. Here we go.
We will be right back after the break. But in the meantime, listen to this empty space here with this great music underneath. This is where your advertisement could go as a sponsor for Movie Blab the podcast. We want sponsors and we will treat you right, believe me. That being said, hit us up at movieblabpodcast@gmail.com. We're cheap, we promise, and we'll get the word out there about your product, website, services, whatever. Let us promote you. So what do you get with our ad placement? Well, your ad will be seen on every single one of our platforms, on every one of our videos, and on every one of our podcasts. So this is the deal of a lifetime. Get in early. We'll treat you right. I will record a special ad just for you. You're gonna love it. So shoot me an email, movieblabpodcast@gmail.com, and let's make a deal, baby. Yeah. We'll be back with more Movie Blab right after this break.
I got a comment from Megan. She said, #1 fans, Katie McDowell.
Hell yeah. Pin that shit.
It's on, I think it's on a comment on the watch party, though. No, I'm kidding. I don't really know exactly how the watch parties work.
I don't understand why when I set the watch party, people said, "Oh, it's private."
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, you got to figure that out, Sharon.
Because it didn't last time. It didn't happen that way. I was watching you do a show. I wasn't on it, but everybody could see it, I think. How long are we going for?
We're going to be gone for just a few seconds.
But I mean, we're going till 3?
Oh, yeah. Well, we just need to do another half hour and then we're done. We got a half an hour now. We just got to do one more half hour.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Rated X.
Cool.
Rated X.
3 minutes and we're back. Pre-production for this episode.
It looks good, dude.
I think you're gonna like the news pre-records. I love doing them. I love it. I overdid that commercial. All right, we're live in a minute and 50 seconds. I know you can hear us, Claire. Thank you. It's okay. It's just part of the show. We gotta give them something. No, we're just not gonna be talking about indie movie philosophy and theories. All right, let me drop some jokes.
Why does it keep exporting some pixel things? Does this song have the text ring in it or something?
No, that was Claire letting me know that she was like, we can hear you on the live stream, and I was like, yeah, that's fine. Gotta give them something to listen to. I mean, I don't have a fucking sound mixer here, so I don't have anyone.
You can't hear
No, she can hear everyone. That's what she was telling me, that she thinks because it's a break that we that I care if people can hear us. And I don't.
Yeah. Megan told me we can still see you.
We know. I didn't say anything. I think it's because I said that commercial thing, but I was just being publicly self-deprecating. Shout out to Megan.
Shout out to Megan. Megan's my producer and friend. She's the best.
I got this one crazy countdown I'm gonna try when we get to 10 seconds.
Why? Why does this keep doing that?
Yo, you should see my show notes. I'm so proud of myself. I started screenshotting things and like putting it in. But I highlight it before I screenshot it so that I'm figuring it out. Gotta pat myself on the back. Pat. 8 minutes. All right, guys. We are back. Believe it or not, we're all here and we're feeling real good. It's time for, I'm going to actually go 4-way video with this instead of cutting, because we're going to have a conversation about this off of this new segment I've created that harkens back to my childhood podcasting days when I was a child and started my own weird news show where I read articles of weird news. That's all I did. Just read other people's articles.
Wait,
this is not weird news. This is
this green stoplight. What?
No. This is me as a kid.
Okay.
Little kid. So it's kind of funny. I realized that today. Anyway, so I'm gonna play this. I don't have the audio, so I'm gonna try and do it this way. Let's see if this works. I don't know. Okay, here we go.
This is an indie film news briefing. Get the facts on Movie News Blab, your only source for trusted independent filmmaking news. And now, here's me.
For trusted independent filmmaking news.
Oh my goodness. We've got a jacket.
Remember what I was saying yesterday about humble beginnings?
Welcome to Movie News Blab. I'm lead anchor. No, I'm kidding. I'm not going to do it like that. Oh, man. This is fun. Okay, so there's so much going on in indie film news, to be real, though. There's so much. This coronavirus is like a crazy wave that's changing everything. Plus, like, we're going to talk about all the ways that it's kind of affecting it. I've got a few articles here, just some headlines to discuss, since that's all anyone reads anyway these days. So let's start with our first story. What do you say, guys? I love it.
Hell yeah, let's go.
I hate that so much. I know you do that on purpose. It's so rude. Okay, here we go. First story. Okay, so indie distributors are having an easier time than studios moving theatrical releases to VOD. So in many ways, indie film companies are having an easier time because they have the workflow. This is from IndieWire. They have the workflow already set up for these for releases like this. And when they do the theatrical runs, they're limited. Now, studios, apparently, they can take all that money they were going to spend promoting it in theaters, and they can pump that into VOD. So that crowds, the VOD market is now even more crowded than it was. Obviously, it's like the main way we watch movies. But in terms of getting stuff picked up, I mean, it's just, I found that interesting. That indie film has those companies have a little leg up on this and can move faster.
Well, yeah, I mean, the big companies, they want their, like, I mean, it's the market is already sort of skewing that way before Corona ever happened, before COVID ever happened. But now, like that, I mean, that makes complete sense because there's no way for anyone to go to a movie theater now, but those big movies that they want released, they want all the press, they want the movie stars to, you need the big opening box office stuff. And so the fact that it's moving that way is great, but it's also, to me, like, I hate that when I hear that, just because I think movie theaters are so close to dead already that this may be the final nail in the coffin to
that actually gets to my second to last story. how indie films are struggling. But I want to throw one more thing in there. So an example of the kind of moves that indie labels are making, Magnolia rushed their films to VOD and launched a virtual cinema program that allows viewers to stream the titles in partnership with local theaters. 100% of the proceeds went straight to ailing theaters through April 2nd. Now the split is 50-50.
That's amazing.
So I thought that was awesome. That's how desperately indie theaters. I mean, that's the biggest thing I'm scared about, is losing these smaller theaters that show smaller movies. But you get, I mean, it's just so sad.
Right.
I'd rather lose a Regal.
Well, and the weird thing to me is the idea of if when I make a film, I like to imagine it in a theater. I like to imagine like the experience, like the goal is to be seen in a theater with the sound and the darkness with other people. Like that's in theory the goal. But that's it's weird to now imagine a world, and when you're making a movie, you don't even expect that. You're now making a movie for somebody to watch it on their TV at home.
What were you asking, Katie?
Yeah, I was just saying, is that now? But now is that like, do kids really? Are they thinking of that versus I want to see it on Netflix?
They're definitely.
I want to see this. I want to see my movie pop up on Netflix next to the other movies.
I want to watch it on my big iPad.
Right. I want people to be able to look it up and watch it right there, and stream it. You know. Because when Bindle Stiffs was on Netflix, like that was so awesome when it was like on Netflix.
Talk more about that.
That was so exciting. But that was like so cool. Even cooler than like seeing it in a theater with people. I feel like seeing it on Netflix was like so sick.
When was just being able to say it's on Netflix?
Shared?
When was it on Netflix?
Never mind. Back to Han. Jared shot that movie doesn't even know that it was on Netflix. It was on Netflix back when they picked up indie movies. Is when it was
back on Netflix when it was.
And then we did 2 on Hulu. It was
like the first year.
Right. In the early Netflix days.
Yeah.
No, I remember when it was streaming.
I have a picture of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when it was on demand and stuff. And I guess, yeah. I mean, I remember Netflix now, but I'm trying to remember what year
it was on like Redbox and all the on-demand stuff. Then it was on Netflix and it was on Hulu. And
it was probably like 2013.
Amazon, Bindle Stiffs on Amazon Prime. Watch it.
Oh my God.
Watch it today.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. I love you. And thank you for promoting this thing we made together, a beautiful thing where
we all worked on
we
it.
expressed.
We were all there almost
and
every
it was a
day.
story that only we could tell. Only we could tell. It may have been told before, but only we could tell it like this. And I stand by that. All right, let's move to the next story.
Breaking news.
Oh my God.
In the mouth.
Was that too loud? I can turn that down.
Not too loud.
Is this better?
It wasn't the volume.
Oh, okay. All right. So, Katie loves it. Okay. Katie's losing it. Forbes. This will add to the complex picture. So, coming attractions, writes Tom Noonan, studios could gain control of theater chains as COVID-19 transforms the industry.
Yeah.
Right? It's pretty mind-blowing. So on May 3rd, 1948, I'm going to read this word for word. That's why shout out to Tom Noonan. On May 3rd, 1948, the Supreme Court affirmed several lower courts' verdicts by forbidding the major motion picture studios to block book their own films and movie chains they controlled. Back then, the studios were found to be violating the 1890 Sherman Antitrust Act, which regulates competition between related enterprises. Here's the mind-blowing part. This ruling all but destroyed the studio system that was born, by the way, as a result of the Spanish flu, when studios created their own chain of theaters after mom and pop chains went out of business as a result of the pandemic of 1918-1919.
Oh, wow.
That's pretty crazy.
That is bone chilling.
So does that mean that we're going to have Netflix cinemas now?
Right.
You know, just get your VR headset on.
Or like Universal will have its own theaters and Warner Brothers will have its own theaters.
So it's now nearly 72 years later, and high-level confidential sources tell Tom that rumors are strong that the Supreme Court will soon reverse its 1948 ruling and allow studios to exhibit their own films. You think Trump gives a fuck about that? No. You know, the six major, even though he's so big, his small business loves small business. The six major movie chains today control about 25,000 theaters across the U.S. domestic box office, which equaled about 1.5 billion in 2019, which half of which went to the non-studio operated exhibitors. This year's box office totals will be substantially less, obviously, but the major studios wanted to go back to being the really old way when they controlled everything. So I think that's the scariest story I've personally read, besides everything about coronavirus.
Yeah, but
yeah,
the people in power right now, there's these new players like Netflix and Amazon, right? So are we including them in there?
Yeah, they're a studio.
Yeah, okay.
They're like the two most powerful, youngest studios that in history.
Right, and actually, I think they're overtaking, right?
Because they buy up lots and they've taken over. Yeah.
But they're also overtaking. I mean, it's just people watch that more than they go to the movies now, right?
Of course. And so they watch it every fucking day.
Right. Their power. I mean, they have so much power that that's why I was saying, like, are we going to see, like, it's not going to be Regal cinemas. It'll be Netflix cinemas, like actual,
Well, in reality, they already opened their first one. The one that's the most dangerous is Disney, because Disney has so much money. They have Star Wars and Marvel. They're beating every other studio in terms of profit, like by like exponential degrees. That if Disney suddenly was going to buy most of the theaters,
and Disney,
then there's a chance that Universal or Sony or some of these other studios that aren't even indie studios or just regular like big studios won't be able to get any movies seen in theaters because Disney theaters are the ones that are around. You know what I mean? Like that's the scary thing.
It is all very scary. It is all totally scary. Our next story.
Breaking news.
Cold glass of water every time. One day I'll get Gilbert Godfrey to be my voiceover. Okay, so this is I promise I end on a high note, but this is sad too. Independent movie theaters across the country brace for the worst. This feeds into what we were talking about earlier. The cinema staff who work the box office and concessions and tear the tickets, projectionists, all the cinema managers, they can't work from home. Obviously, this is happening all over the place, but this to me seemed a movie would be the same as a restaurant. They'll just lay off.
Right. Of course. Yeah.
And we talk a lot about the industry people, but this is it that, I mean, I think I believe people who work in movie theaters are just as important in our industry as any other part of the chain. They're the people that like create this experience and maintain it for us. And now they're all going to just be, and it's not like your movie theater experience transfers over to anything that you can sit in your house and do. It's just hard. And they're worried about having to. I would say if you're donate to important stuff, and then also donate a little bit to your local independent movie theater, because we can't lose these. We really can't. And they're hip, so they're coming back. I mean, it's like they're cool and everything, but I don't want to lose them, because what will I do? That's the only thing I leave my apartment to do. So I don't know what I'm going to personally.
I think that, though, a lot are adapting. I mean, it's like Alamo Drafthouse here, which is a movie theater that serves you food while you watch the movie. I think a lot of things are adapting in that way, like big comfy chairs, and they have food, and it's a way more of an experience. So you get, so to make people come in more.
It is weird though. I went to one of those recently at an AMC one where it's like the whole place is just like comfy chairs. It's not like a couch or anything. It's just a little recliner or whatever. But it was like I forget which movie it was. It was either 1917 or it was like just a regular scary movie sort of thing. But I remember feeling sort of like everyone was so mellow that like no one was like, oh, or, like there weren't those sort of visceral, you didn't feel like you were in that theater with people. You felt like you were sort of in your chair and everyone was.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
And the energy is different in that way. Now, of course, you're not going to be able to avoid that. People love having their spot and they know where they're sitting and they have their comfy chairs, but there is less of that experience of you're all there together.
Yeah, and something that this article points out by Jason Bailey, by the way, on Vulture, is an interview with an indie film manager the guy who manages Vista and Los Feliz 3, which are, I've been to, I know at least one of those theaters, but he pointed out that they're not going to be able to pay for reparations, reparations, repairs. Reparations.
I was like, wait, what?
Okay. Anyway, yeah, there's all kinds of things going on here, but they're not going to be able to upgrade to the cool newest thing. That's delayed too. Even if they do open up again, they're taking this huge loss every day. I mean, huge leases for those spaces, and no one can go there. It's like stadiums. And so we all need to at least support the little ones, and they'll probably bail out the big ones. Who cares? But the little ones need the help. So
that's going on around the country in an unprecedented way.
Yes.
For so many different kinds of businesses.
Yes.
Any place that's important.
And if this wasn't a filmmaking podcast,
theaters,
I'd be telling you. If this was a coronavirus
anywhere
podcast,
that isn't,
I'd be telling you to do something
important to you. Theaters are not.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm saying donate to a big thing, and then give a small donation to something else. That is your pet donation, because I think that's just super important, man. To keep our art and our culture. I mean, I think it's hard to wrap our mind around.
The same way with the theaters in New York.
Yes, exactly.
How many any place that works project to project like that is just, yeah.
And if you do find a theater that is doing a GoFundMe or something, please send it to Movie Blab, either on Facebook or email movieblabpodcast@gmail.com, and I'll blow that out. Yeah,
that's great.
Okay, so finally, I'm going to give
breaking news.
Some good news. This is from Decider. Anna Menta announces that what just happened? Did it fall? Did his whole phone fall?
No.
Oh, you're laughing.
Threw his glasses off in dismay.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Breaking news. Breaking news.
Bong Hive Assemble, Parasite, and 3 other Bong Joon-ho movies are now streaming on Hulu, which is awesome because I love Parasite. And I feel like, a lot of people saw that, but like also to see his earlier movies, one of which was at Slamdance. This is just good timing for that. Obviously, like people are obsessed with him just as a man. How do you feel about that, Jared? I feel like you would have a similar fandom.
I would have a similar fandom if I won Best Picture.
Yes. Because sometimes the Best Picture winner is very boring. No one cares, or they're just like, oh, there's the famous person that won.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Bong Ho became a meme. He became.
Oh yeah, because he's great. He was great on camera, and he was talking about what did he say? Something about it. Now's time to start drinking, and
he's like, now I'm gonna start drinking.
Yeah, he's funny.
He made the Oscars kiss.
Yeah.
He's got a style, to himself.
I told you this is good news. Doesn't it warm your heart? He's sort of almost there with like, what is her name? Betty Davis? Is that who Betty Thomas? Who's the old lady that no one wants her to die and she's still alive?
Betty White.
Betty White. It's sort of like Betty White.
I was trying to figure out what you're saying about Betty Davis. I was like, wait, Betty Davis, what?
I was exchanging Betty Davis GIFs on Facebook yesterday, so that's why I got confused, in case you were wondering. But yes, this is awesome news, and he's a Slamdance alumni, and he's an Academy Award winner. But so shout out to Dan Mervish, who I interviewed on the first episode, personal friend of Ho, I'm sure, Jun Ho. And let us know what you think. I'm going to be watching the rest of his films. To be honest, I don't think I've seen any other ones, and that's why I can't wait. And I wish he was in his movies though, because I love him. He's such a cuddly, nice man. It's him and Cuomo, You get it. All right. Let's see. I think that was all the news. OMG, that was our very first Movie Blab news, which is pretty
Movie Blab news.
Cool. And I think
breaking news.
I think this is my outro, I want to say.
Breaking news.
This is breaking news again.
Breaking news.
It would be so cool if I nailed this, right? Maybe this is it.
news.
This is an
No. I gotta play it, so I'll cut this part out. Screw you guys. Part of this is watching me be bad at podcasting live. It's very challenging. It's not easy to do this.
Are you making choices?
Well, I just really worked hard on this intro, guys. I don't care how long I have to lose, how many viewers I lose. I'm gonna fucking play it. Intro.
I'm gonna play this outro. It's the last thing I fucking do.
Yeah, exactly. That's sort of my attitude about this, and I'm sad, but I'm hopeful. Okay, screw it. I'm just gonna play the intro again.
Just perform the outro.
Okay.
Yeah, do it live.
Can we
I
go
don't
live?
have just the clean audio of that. But okay, here we go.
Outro us?
Here we
You
go.
could just outro us.
I could do it like I'll do it like C-SPAN.
Live.
You've been listening to Movie News Blab, your favorite place to get the
Fuck. See, I don't like doing this live.
It's so much better.
Okay,
It's
you're
so
right.
good.
I like it.
Your favorite place to get the facts on indie film. The world's changing every day, but what doesn't change is Movie News Blab, the worst news ever.
Okay. Let's get back to I think we can wrap it up really, really soon here. I wanted to talk a little bit back to that point. Bong Joon-ho. He is someone I feel like I totally get a sense of him from, at least from Parasite. And to see, I think a lot of what people liked was the matchup of his soul and wit and the soul and wit of his film. What do y'all think?
I was looking at pieces, little scenes from The Host.
Oh yeah.
The other day, and noticing, not only noticing familiar faces, but like,
Right.
yeah, I mean, he's definitely got a pattern of the ensemble family, misfit family thing going between The Host and Parasite, for sure.
And the whimsy. I think there's whimsy.
Yeah.
In him and his work.
There's whimsy. I mean, yeah, there's sort of like the humor of suffering.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting how filmmakers' personalities come out in their movies, and then you see them when you finally get to see who they are. Like Tarantino is another great example. He talks like crazy.
I wonder
Then
if
you can see like.
I was gonna say, I wonder if he came from a family that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
we'll have to ask him when I get him on the show, season 18.
Yeah.
But
Katie,
no,
what were you
I
gonna
do.
say? Wait, Katie,
I was just saying
like,
like
Katie?
I was just saying like I think it's cool when you can tell like what kind of movies they like from what they make. Like you can tell that he watches a lot of movies and he likes like romantic comedies probably, or like romantic movies, and he likes movies that are dramatic and like
and he puts
violent,
all of that into his movies.
and then
yeah,
it all like combines. It's kind of cool just to be able to see like the melting pot.
Yeah, I mean, what were you gonna say, Han?
I was gonna say that it may be a little bit of a cheat sheet, or I guess maybe no. It's more just something that I notice with a lot of directors I really like, is that there is a mix of exactly what you're saying, which is drama and real life and death situations, but whimsy and fun. And whenever I mean, this is me personally, but I love movies that mix drama and like comedy.
Yeah, to give you all the feels.
Like Bong Joon-ho and Quentin Tarantino are great examples. Like I love Jason Reitman for that reason.
Oh yes. Even though he adapts all his books, his movies from books. But he brings this humor to it. Like Up in the Air is a great movie.
The scripts are so dramatically, but there's so much humor in that young adult. Like so many of those movies have these, Juno, like all of them have these elements of fun and comedy and lightheartedness, because it's human. That's what a human being is dramatic and life and death.
Alexander Payne is another example.
Yeah, like everyone deals with pain, but everyone tries to alleviate that and keep it light in some way. It's not all so dramatic all the time.
Yeah,
but I think that's a mark, of the best ones. That's why we're naming all these, because the best ones do that.
I was about to say that. Yes, exactly. It's like that's just proof right there. The people, the ones we know of, are the ones whose personalities are shining through, and that, and who are telling the story that only they could tell.
Right.
And like in music, like to become a new genre, you pull things from other things to create something new, which is also in like film. You're pulling all these elements from other genres to create kind of something that's your own. Because you can't, as you said, every story has like been told, but it's how you tell it and how you make it, like your style, that sets it apart.
And when lightning strikes, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Sherrod, do you want to leave us with any, would you just leave us with a rant of your choosing related to movies?
I was just going to go off your, when lightning strikes. I was going to say when lightning strikes, it leaves the most unusual scar.
Harry Potter. You good, Harry.
That's not even what I was thinking of.
I know. I decided to trump your joke.
Damn.
Trump.
Harry.
I've got this, I think. Let's see if this is what I think it is. In case you want to know where my politics lie.
Just throw that in.
Just a PSA at the end because I'm pissed. All right, guys. We hope you're all safe. This was really fun. Feels like one of our most exciting episodes ever.
Very fun.
We're going to play the outro and have a little dance. I got one more pre-record for you. Just imagine Gilbert Gottfried, okay? Let me find this. Here it goes.
Well, thank you again for joining us. We love you. You love us. Movie Blab is really forming into a very shapely and strong army cult. And we want you to be a part of this cult. So you have to follow our simple induction process, which is to go on Facebook, perform the ceremony
Little dance for
of
me, guys.
liking
Come on.
our page. That's all it takes, and you've been inducted.
We're turning into
All
a
your
very
friends who join the
shapely
cult, It's
podcast.
called Movie Blab, and they
It's a
should join
very
you.
shapely
We're almost at
podcast.
200 likes. Again, humble beginnings.
Humble
But
beginnings.
every like counts.
It really does.
So please, thank you, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Movie Blab is recorded live from Brooklyn, New York.
Thank you, guys.
Well, that was exciting.
Just a second. I'm going to cut the music, and then it's going to be nice and clean here.
How was that?
Sherrod, you did a great job, buddy.
Yeah, you were great.
Perfect.
I
My
love your
AirPods are about to
glasses.
die.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. All right. That's it, guys.
Well, that
Say
was
hello.
fun.
Yeah, dude.